It was a normal day on the ranch until things took an unexpected turn. My cousin, just trying to get some work done on our land, was suddenly stopped by a man claiming to be from the HOA. At first, we thought it was just some routine check, but something didn't sit right. This guy wasn't official. He didn't have the right paperwork, and his attitude was off. It didn't take long to realize we were dealing with someone pretending to have authority. What we didn't know was that his story wasn't just a random power trip. Behind him was something much bigger. His army unit was waiting just down the road. As my cousin tried to get answers, the tension built, and I could feel the storm brewing. Who were these people, and what did they really want from us? Why was an entire army unit involved? I couldn't help but think, what could they possibly want with our ranch? And why had they chosen now, of all times, to make their move? My cousin's detainment was just the beginning. Little did we know, the story was far from over, and the true reason behind this bizarre encounter would shock us all. Stay tuned to find out what happens next. As I watched from the window, my heart raced. The fake HOA cop had my cousin pinned against his truck, asking questions that didn't make any sense. There was no way this was just a misunderstanding. We've been on this ranch for years, and I knew every inch of it. No one had ever come around acting like this. My cousin, usually calm and collected, looked visibly shaken. He wasn't talking much, just standing there, trying to figure out what was going on. I could see his frustration mounting, and I felt helpless. I grabbed my phone and tried to call him, but his line was dead. The only thing I could do was wait, and pray nothing went wrong. That's when I remembered something from years ago. My uncle had always warned us to be cautious of people who wanted to stake a claim on the land. We were sitting on valuable property, but we never thought anyone would go this far. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how strange it all was. Why hadn't the army unit shown themselves yet? Why was this man acting like he was in charge? Something was off, and there was no way I was just going to stand there and let this go on. I needed answers, and fast. But I had no idea how deep this would go. The truth, I feared, was much darker than we could have imagined. The minutes dragged by like hours, and every passing second felt heavier. I was pacing back and forth inside the house, my mind racing through every possible scenario. Was it just a simple case of someone trying to intimidate us? Or was there something much bigger at play? My stomach churned as I thought about the army unit down the road, if they were even real. What if they were connected to the fake HOA cop? I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being pulled into something far beyond our control. Just then, I heard a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat. I opened it cautiously, half expecting the guy from the truck to be standing there. But it was just our neighbor, Tom. He looked worried, glancing over his shoulder before stepping inside. "You see what's going on?" he asked, his voice low. "I heard some stuff down the road. There's been talk of people trying to buy up land around here, under the table, you know." I nodded, trying not to let the anxiety show on my face. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Tom leaned in, his eyes darting nervously. "There's more to it. The army guys, they're not just here to keep the peace. They've been scouting this area for weeks. I've seen them." My pulse quickened. What could an army unit possibly want with a bunch of old farms? And why hadn't anyone said anything about it until now? Every part of me screamed that something wasn't right. And yet, my cousin was still out there, stuck in this mess, while I was sitting here doing nothing. I had to figure out what was going on, but I was starting to feel like I was in over my head. Tom's warning lingered in the air, thick with uncertainty. My mind raced, trying to piece everything together. Army units scouting land. A fake HOA cop pulling rank. It was all too much. I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me, knowing that whatever was happening, it was much bigger than I had anticipated. I couldn't shake the feeling that my cousin was in serious danger. I grabbed my keys and headed straight for the truck. Tom tried to stop me, but I couldn't stay in the house any longer. I had to get to my cousin, figure out what was going on, and get him out of there. The closer I got to the road, the more the tension thickened. My hands gripped the wheel, my mind racing with questions I didn't have answers to. What were those army guys doing? Why hadn't they made a move yet? And what was the fake HOA cop really after? As I rounded the bend near the ranch gate, I saw them, 2 military vehicles parked off to the side. My cousin was still standing by the truck, but the fake HOA cop was nowhere to be seen. The situation had taken a turn, and I felt it deep in my bones that things were about to escalate. Suddenly, I saw movement in the distance. The army unit was starting to form up. It was as if they were getting ready to move. I couldn't tell if they were coming for us, or if they were waiting for something else to happen, but the air was electric with the promise of an impending confrontation. My pulse raced as I stepped out of the truck, my eyes locked on the group ahead. It felt like the calm before the storm. Everything in me screamed to run, but I knew I had no choice. I had to face this head-on, whatever this was. My cousin, still standing there, didn't seem to notice the growing danger, but I knew time was running out. Would they make a move? Would I make it in time to stop it? Every instinct told me that I was about to find out. As I stepped closer, trying to keep my movements steady, I noticed something strange. One of the military vehicles had its engine running, but no one was inside. That alone should have been enough to stop me, but I was too focused on getting to my cousin. He was still standing by the truck, looking at something in the distance, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I called out to him, but his response didn't come. It was like he couldn't hear me, or worse, like he was frozen in place. Then I saw it, a flash of movement behind the military vehicles. Someone was crouched low, hidden from view. My heart skipped a beat, and I immediately knew that something was off. My first instinct was to duck and move quickly, but before I could react, a voice cut through the silence. "Stay right where you are." It was the fake HOA cop. He wasn't gone, he had been waiting. But that wasn't the worst part. He wasn't alone. A second figure stepped into view, someone I hadn't seen before. Tall, with a commanding presence, wearing a tactical vest. And in that moment, everything clicked. The guy was military too. I could barely process it when the second figure spoke. "You don't know what you're dealing with, do you?" His voice was cold, almost too calm. I froze, every nerve screaming that I'd just walked into something much bigger than I could have imagined. It wasn't just about a fake HOA cop or some military unit trying to take control of land. The stakes had just been raised to a whole new level, and I had no idea what was coming next. "Get in the truck," the first figure said, his eyes narrowing as he sized me up. "And don't ask questions. Not yet." I wasn't sure if it was a command or a threat, but one thing was clear. Whatever was happening, it wasn't going to stop until it reached a breaking point. And it felt like that moment was almost here. My cousin, still frozen by the truck, hadn't moved, and I realized too late that I was now part of something that was spiraling out of control. I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run, but I couldn't leave my cousin behind. He was still in danger, and I had no idea what these people wanted or why they were here. The situation was spiraling so fast I could hardly keep up, but one thing was clear. I had to act, and I had to act now. I took a slow step forward, trying to figure out what to do next. The two men didn't seem to notice my hesitation. They were focused on my cousin, who was still staring at the ground. "Get in the truck," the second man repeated, his tone growing sharper. "Now." I reached out and grabbed my cousin's arm, snapping him out of his daze. "We need to move now," I whispered urgently. But before we could even take another step, something completely unexpected happened. The sound of a loud engine rolled from behind us. I spun around, only to see a third vehicle speeding down the road. Another military truck, but this one was different. It wasn't just military. It was marked with a government insignia I recognized from somewhere, though I couldn't place it. My heart nearly stopped as the truck skidded to a halt next to us. The door flew open, and out stepped a figure in a sharp uniform, one that made the two men in front of us suddenly stiffen. "This is a mistake," the newcomer said, locking eyes with the fake HOA cop and the man in the tactical vest. "You've overstepped your bounds." The two men froze. The tension in the air was unbearable. The newcomer turned to me and my cousin, giving us a reassuring look. "You two need to come with me. Now, before this gets out of hand." My stomach dropped. What was going on? Who were these people? The world felt like it was crashing down around me, and I had no idea which side to trust. The man in the tactical vest spoke, but there was a flicker of fear in his voice. "You don't understand. This land is worth more than you think. You can't just take it from us." The new figure gave a small, almost sad smile. "It's never been about the land." Before I could process his words, everything happened at once. The two men in front of us bolted, turning and running toward the forest line. The military vehicle with the insignia sped off after them, leaving us standing in stunned silence. I barely knew what to think, let alone say, what had just happened? I turned to the newcomer, my head still spinning. What the hell is going on? What do they want with our land? He paused, his eyes darkening. "They're part of something much bigger. But for now, it's over. The threat to your ranch has been neutralized. But trust me when I say this isn't over. They'll be back." I felt my heart sink. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. What had started as an unexpected encounter was now a full-blown conspiracy, and it was far from finished. As the dust settled and the reality of the situation set in, I realized that this was only the beginning of a much larger, far more dangerous game. And whatever happened next, my life had just changed forever. The newcomer didn't elaborate further, but something in his eyes told me that this was far from over. It was clear we'd only seen the tip of the iceberg. As he turned and walked back to the military vehicle, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives had just been irrevocably changed. What had started with a fake HOA cop and a strange army unit had now spiraled into something much larger, something that would keep us on edge for the foreseeable future. We stayed on the ranch for a few more days, trying to process everything. My cousin was still rattled, but we both knew one thing: we couldn't stay idle. We started making plans, talking to locals, and quietly gathering information. The fake HOA cop and the military men weren't the only ones watching the land. There was a bigger picture at play here, and we needed to understand it before it was too late. In the end, the ranch was safe for now. But as I looked out over the land we fought to protect, I realized how fragile everything was. People were willing to do anything for power, for control. And no matter how much we wanted peace, we couldn't ignore the reality that threats were out there, lurking just beneath the surface, ready to strike when least expected. As the sun set that evening, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. One thing was certain: whatever happened next, we would be ready.